god, I'm scared.
Ashley, shut the fuck up.
Do you even know where we're going?
I have no idea. Shh. Here's something.
Welcome.
Resident Evil is a weird series. Started off as a third-person survival horror game with fixed camera angles and an emphasis on puzzle solving, item management, and horror, the first 3 games of the series, as well as Code Veronica, were highly successful. Resident Evil was then known as a series with incredible enemy design, deep lore, and a feeling that no matter how strong you were, the odds always feel against you. After a long hiatus in the early 2000s, director and creator of the series, Shinji Mikami, came up with many ideas for a new Resident Evil game. Some of his ideas ended up being entirely new games themselves, with the first build of the game turning into the highly acclaimed Devil May Cry. In early 2005, Capcom released an action-adventure game for the purple lunchbox known as the GameCube, called
Resident Evil 4.
Thank you, guy with the creepy voice. Thank you. Upon release, Resident Evil was quickly regarded as a masterpiece and is now considered one of the best video games of all time. Resident Evil 4 is one of the best video games I have ever played, and it's one of the reasons I love video games in general. But my god, that game's been ported to so many different consoles so many times, it's ridiculous. I got it for the GameCube, then the PS2, I bought it on Steam, got it on the Wii because of its awesome controls, downloaded the awful iOS version, bought the HD version for PS3, and now I'm buying it for a 7th time as it's just been re-released on PS4 alongside the 5th and the 6th entries of the series. And by the way, if you want to see my reviews for Resident Evil 5 and 6, the link's in the description for you. But anyways, my name is George, and I'm here to tell you why Resident Evil 4 is one of the best video games of all time. Former Raccoon City police officer Leon S. Kennedy did such a good job during his first day of work, considering that was the day of the viral outbreak. He's been working for the US government ever since. 6 years after the events of Resident Evil 2, Leon has been sent on a secret mission to some random part of Spain to locate the president's daughter, Ashley Graham. Yes, we all know it sounds ridiculous and illogical to send one man to rescue the president's daughter, but it's Resident Evil, so you kinda just go with it. But unfortunately, this town's inhabitants are infected with a virus called Los Plagas and are all part of this religious cult called the Los Illuminados. So, as expected, things are much more different than they seem, and it's up to you to figure out what's going on. The Resident Evil series has always been known for its B-movie plot and script, and Resident Evil 4 is no exception. There are some insanely corny lines and stereotypical characters that to some people are full of charm, and to others it's full of cringe. But no matter what side of the fence you are, those conversations you'll have with Hunnigan really suck. Character performances are mostly decent, but there are some crazy accents and stilted dialogue at times. Luckily, Leon's performance is great, which helps continue to make Leon one of the most beloved characters in the entire series. Resi 4's plot is intriguing, and there are some great story revelations and character reveals later on that are absolutely shocking. Resident Evil 4's story and characters are one of the reasons why this title continues to be a timeless classic. While I am disappointed that they still haven't remade this game from the ground up yet, in a certain way, Resident Evil 4's visuals still convey the environment and character as well, and still manage to tense you up and put you on edge. There are many rough edges that haven't aged well at all, as well as other visual inconsistencies, but beyond that, Resident Evil 4 still holds up well. It basically looks exactly the same as the original, with the only differences being that everything looks much sharper, and that it now runs at 60 frames per second. One of my favorite things about Resi 4, as well as the Resident Evil series in general, are the atmospheric locations and the disgusting enemy design. Not only are all the locations wildly different and varied, but they're so immersive that the environments alone are able to crawl into your skin and make you uncomfortably tense throughout the entire game. The depressing, eerily creepy village you traverse throughout the beginning, the ancient castle with objects and inhabitants that don't belong, and later locations I won't dare spoil for you. And then we have our enemies. At first you'll be fighting what seem to be crazy humans that are just, well, crazy, but soon you'll realize that they're all infected with Los Plagas, and some of their heads burst open and spew tentacles everywhere. You also have rabid dogs also infected with the virus, disgusting boss battles, and probably the most terrifying enemy in the entire series, the Chainsaw Dude. Oh my god, these guys, and sometimes gals, are absolutely terrifying. If you haven't played this game and don't understand why they're so scary, You'll find out when you realize that it's an instant game over if they get their hands on you. This is just one of the reasons as to why Resident Evil 4 is one of the most tense, nerve-wracking, satisfying gaming experiences I have ever had. So, to explain further, we have to talk about the gameplay. Resident Evil 4 basically popularized the third-person over-the-shoulder combat system, which is now commonplace in games like the Gears of War and Uncharted series. So, you run around the game exploring every nook and cranny to find ammo, treasure, and other little goodies that are essential to get through the game. To kill enemies, you stop in place, aim your laser, and fire away. Depending on what part of their body you attack, they'll react accordingly. If the enemy is stunned, you can save precious ammo, but perform a quick time event to take him out. That's basically combat in a nutshell. When I first started playing the PS4 version, I was quickly reminded as to how outdated it felt to move Leon. I love the concept of staying still to use your weapons, but you're only allowed to walk straight as it's impossible to move side to side, and using the camera with the right stick is pretty much useless. Well, nowadays it's unacceptable to purposely make the act of controlling your character hard just so the game is much more tense and scary, but Resident Evil 4's clunky controls does make the game much more terrifying, which means the smallest mistake could cause fatal results, and I love that. It's weird to think that it's easier to control your character in this game than it was in prior entries in the series. Like mentioned before, Resident Evil 4 is one of the most tense and rewarding gaming experiences I've ever had. Once you experience one of the most stressful levels of gaming history, which is the village scene, that's when you understand how Resident 4's gameplay mechanics work. From then on, the game never gets old, and not only has you fighting in different areas with different weapons against different enemies, but it'll always find unique ways to scare and surprise you. After the first 4 hours of the game, you feel like you have a pretty good understanding as to what the rest of the experience is going to be like. But once you find Ashley, you'll almost immediately find out that the game will find ways to surprise you. Escorting Ashley throughout the game, by the way, is incredibly annoying. So annoying that when I first played the game when I was much younger, I thought the inclusion of Ashley would ruin the game. Shortly after I thought that though, I started treating it as an interesting gameplay mechanic once I figured out I could tell her to stay in certain locations as I go out killing everyone. From this point on, I can guarantee that Resident Evil 4 is going to keep throwing surprises at you that you won't see coming. Resident Evil 4 will have you on the edge of losing your sanity throughout the entire game because the combat system and the hundreds of surprises the game has in store for you are so pleasantly stressful that you will never feel safe. The only time Resident Evil gives you room to breathe is either when you're in a room with a typewriter, which is how you save the game, or you pause the game to go to the bathroom and hide in the corner. You'll start the game off with a basic pistol, some ammo, and some herbs, which means you'll have to carefully manage your ammo and your inventory. And I will admit, I don't think any video game has ever made managing your inventory as fun as it is in Resident Evil 4. And while you'll eventually carry a wide array of firearms and powerful weapons, like with every Resident Evil game, you may feel powerful, but some of the scenarios you're thrown into and the enemies you're up against make you always feel that you're at a disadvantage. But the game always balances its difficulty perfectly. To help make you more powerful, the merchant will be available on multiple locations throughout the game. He may seem like an odd guy that has cemented his legacy in video game culture by asking you, what are you buying or what are you selling? But it's when you talk to him where you can buy and sell new weapons and items, as well as upgrade the weapons you have using the gold you collect. But even with this advantage, Resident Evil 4 is a challenging game that demands you stay calm and face against fears you didn't know you had to get through the many challenges that await you. Resident Evil 4 is a prime example as to why video games are as amazing as they are, because its combat is truly incredible. The game will take you around 16 hours to complete on your first playthrough. Replay value consists of playing the game again with all your weapons and upgrades from your previous playthrough, unlocking all the crazy costumes for both Leon and Ashley, as well as an extra story pack that lets you play as Ada Wong, and it's in Resident Evil 4 that we are introduced to the series' infamous minigame, Mercenaries Mode. Resident Evil 4 is a landmark achievement in video games. It is one of the most tense, atmospheric, scary, and rewarding experiences I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing. Its plot is simple and intriguing, with wonderful characters and a fantastic protagonist. The places you'll go, the creatures you fight, the fantastic combat system, as well as the surprises the game throw at you at every turn, make this one of the most memorable adventures to be found in video games. While the visuals as well as the controls may not have aged gracefully, once you accept the fact that this game was made over 10 years ago, you'll see why this game is as highly regarded as it is. If you have never played this game, regardless if you've never played a Resident Evil game before, for $20, you almost have to buy this. Resident Evil 4 is one of those games that should be on everyone's to-do list. It's hard to call yourself a gamer if you've never played Resident Evil 4. For other veterans such as myself that have beaten this game multiple times, there's nothing new here that should justify another purchase. But if you love it as much as I do, then there's nothing wrong with getting it again. After experiencing this game for yourself, it's easy to see why Resident Evil 4 is one of the best video games ever made. Resident
Evil 4.
Oh yeah, that's right, I'm supposed to let you say it before myself, that's right. Resident Evil 4 is a masterpiece. Thank you for watching my review of Resident Evil 4. To see my reviews for the PS4 versions of Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6, then just click the links in the description. For more videos about Resident Evil, video games, and even bathrooms, then subscribe to Bathroom Gamers. Thank you for watching, and stay fresh.
Don't you need the gun?